Hey, what's up, guys? My name is Art, and welcome back to my channel. Today, I'm not alone. Today, I'm with the drag queen. Her name is Aimee. Aimee, thank you so much for agreeing to talk to us.
Thank you so much for having me and talking to me.
It was a very random story how I met Aimee. I basically went to Sephora, and I wanted to get something for my face because I'm getting older, and whenever I film, I just want to make sure that I look okay. And Aimee, she's also Chris on the nighttime or daytime. She helped me to get my makeup, and pretty much that's what I'm using till today. And that's how we met, and I reached out to Aimee because she started to do more and more drag, and I wanted to ask her story. How did you decide to be a drag queen?
It was a very difficult decision. I had not come out too much more before that. I was just starting to experiment with makeup. My ex-boyfriend, he was really uncomfortable with makeup and men wearing makeup. So when we broke up, I bought $350 worth of makeup at Sephora, and I was like, I'm just gonna do it. I'm just going to try it and see what happens. And then a year after that, I bought my first wig, and I was like, okay, we're gonna do the whole thing. We're gonna get a dress, and I actually got one of my mom's outfits and tried it on, and then I did my first whole drag look, and here we are.
How much was the first wig?
The first wig was $75. It wasn't too much. It was like a little ratty wig that I got online, and it was unstyled, and it looked horrible, but I thought I looked sexy.
So would you say that your previous relationship kept you a little bit from doing it faster, or you think that it was just the right moment whenever you were ready?
I would definitely say so. I mean, we were both freshly out, and we weren't very comfortable. We also lived in the Czech Republic, and homophobia is very rampant there, so we hid a lot, and I feel like both of us were afraid to sort of come out even more and show a little bit more of our femininity and our queerness. So after we broke up and after I moved back to the States, I felt like I had a little bit more breathing room to show more of myself.
All of a sudden, this conversation gets even more interested because you've lived in the Czech Republic for how many years?
I lived there for 2 years.
So they're very homophobic, even though Czech Hunter is, Czech Hunter.
I know Czech Hunter.
Even though it was filmed there.
Yeah. I don't know what you're talking about, actually.
But there's pretty homophobic in Czech?
Yes. I mean, we had some safe spaces, but for the most part, we didn't hold hands, we didn't kiss in public. There were people who would get beat.
Was it Prague?
Prague, yeah.
Okay, that's nice to know. Be careful in Prague. I wanted to ask you, what was your coming out story? When did you come out, and how was it? Was it hard for you, or went pretty well?
I came out when I was 17. I was in high school, and I originally came out as bisexual. So I really thought that there was a part of me that was still attracted to women. And I find that, although it's not the case for all people, I still needed to come to terms with no, I am fully gay, and that part was hard for me, even just coming to terms with being queer at all. My family, for the most part, took it well. I think we all had a lot of adjustment to make.
Did you just told your family, or how did it happen?
Yeah, so I told my mom. She and I have a wonderful relationship, but she basically told me, she's like, we can't keep this a secret, or I can't keep this a secret. You have to tell everybody else. I had to open up that day and tell my whole family as they were sitting in the living room, and that was very hard.
Do you have a big family?
No, I just have one sibling, and then my mom and dad.
How did your dad took it?
His reaction was not necessarily the best. He started out by saying that, people change, and I'll get out of this phase or whatever. And then I never got out of this phase. So,
trend.
Yep, here we are.
And what about your sibling?
So actually, my brother, he's trans, so we're both queer. And that was hard for him too. So I'm here a very, very gay drag queen, and then he's a trans man. So my family has had to come to terms a lot with queer identity and what that means. And adjustments are still being made. Right now, my mom and my dad are my biggest fans. They support me every step of the way.
What part of US you're from?
That's hard to say. I mostly lived overseas, but right now they're all in Virginia.
But you mostly lived overseas. Why?
Because of my dad's job. So he worked for American embassies, so we were always hopping different countries.
So out of just while we're on a topic, you lived in different countries. What kind of countries there were?
I lived in Italy for 5 years, Germany for 4, South Korea for almost 4, and then the Czech Republic for 2.
What was the most accepting country do you feel you lived in?
Definitely Germany. I lived in Berlin, and that's why I'm in New York now, because it feels the most like home. That's where I think, came to terms with my queerness, was in Berlin, because I saw it everywhere, and everyone just accepted that. So it was great.
What was your experience to coming out to your friends? Or did you had friends at this point because you were moving a lot? What was your coming out to your friends?
Actually, the friends that I had at that time when I came out were very not accepting.
Oh my gosh, really?
Yeah,
Can we hear more about this?
of course. Like, I had one friend who, I hope this is okay to say, but she told me I deserved and that I was going to go to hell. So
She was religious.
she was religious, yep. And her other friend was also religious, but was a little bit more kind about it. And then I had my other friend and learned lots of things about him down the road, but he also was like, I just don't want to hear about it. Like, just don't tell me.
And what country was it in?
This was in Korea.
Okay.
But we were all military kids. We all came from different backgrounds. Most of my friends were American still at the time. So I really thought that I was going to have a group of people, at least at school, that would take me in, and then they didn't. So there was a phase of my high school life where I didn't have anyone to support me. Came back to the States, and I told myself that I wasn't going to keep it from anybody. So if anyone asked, or if I felt like comfortable to say it, I would just come out. And then I found like the best friends of my whole life.
They have this narrative in Korea. They're not very acceptable to others people. Like, is it mostly sexuality? It's just not as common there?
Honestly, I think I was too young to understand all the nuances of it. Seoul, or Korea in general, is a very Christian country. So religion is definitely a factor in a lack of acceptance, I would say. Most of my Korean friends are still friends with me to this day and have had no issues with them. Honestly, the only people that I've ever had trouble with are other Americans. Even overseas, some of my American friends or other Americans that were in my community were not as accepting. But then coming back to the States too, I will say I've had a very fortunate experience. I've been protected a lot by the group of people that I'm around, and I'm also very like aware of my surroundings, so I make sure to never put myself in a situation where I could be in trouble. But yeah, the only people who have ever said anything nasty to me are Americans here.
You know, the drag culture is getting bigger and bigger, and there is more shows and people go to more clubs. What do you think is the biggest problem in the drag community itself, if you can tell us? Like, are there any specific things inside the community that you've noticed that you can share with us?
Absolutely. I was actually having this conversation with one of my roommates yesterday, and we were discussing kind of like queer culture, or gay culture specifically, is like a microcosm of the real world. So patriarchy still lives within the gay community. There are still levels, there are castes that people kind of get pushed into. And I would say that drag culture used to be at the bottom of the rung, and it has become so much more mainstream that it's kind of skyrocketed, and now we're seen as superstars and celebrities, and it's crazy how rapid that change happened. But there's still some like reservations that people have. There's, you know, you have your mask for mask gays who look at gay men dressing up as women and femininity as a bad thing. And I don't think it's a bad thing. Like, I'm a man dressed as a woman right now, and I feel beautiful. I feel great.
Very beautiful.
Thank you.
Very sexy. Very
Thank
cool.
you. I'm glad we're on the same page.
Me too.
Yeah, so it definitely there are some kinks that need to be worked out. There are a lot of things that we still need to come to terms with as a community and then as a society as a whole. Drag culture right now, like, I'm on top of all you bitches, so just watch out.
Watch out. I wanted to ask you, there's been a lot of scandals with the drag queens and drag queens branches, and when kids are coming. What would you comment on this? How do we actually explain people who think that it's bad, that it's, how do we explain that it's not bad, that it's not necessarily all sexualized, that it's, what would your comment, and what do other drag queens think about it?
I think that there is a healthy split between different drag queens. So there are some drag queens that perform for only adults, and that's fair. There are communities that are just for adult viewers. But then there are drag queens who are more open to sort of expanding their art to younger audiences. And I think that's completely valid. Drag is not inherently sexual. It's only made that way by other people.
Yeah.
So unless we want it to be sexual, which is not a bad thing either, then it can be.
Yeah.
But in this context with children, no, it's not. Drag queen story time. I have one of my best friends, like one of my best drag queen friends in Boston. She does drag queen story time. And she's been on the news because she gets people who stand outside of the library spewing slurs and protesting. And she's like, I'm doing this for the community because as a drag queen, it is okay.
Do you think that being a drag queen somehow affects your relationships? You mentioned that your boyfriend is very acceptable.
Again, I'll say I think I'm very fortunate to not have an experience where people are not accepting. I think so I have my daytime job, and in that environment, people are so, like, they love that I do drag. And my family loves that I do drag. Not just my mom and dad and my brother. Like, my grandmother, she is probably my biggest fan. She's given me some of the jewelry that I'm wearing today. Like, she just loves what I do. And I think that I'm one of the few lucky ones to have, a support system among my friends and my family who love me and love what I do. There are some other queens who are not as fortunate, but I mean, it's a saying in the gay community, like, we choose our family too. So those are the people that will always be behind you.
Are you getting hit on more when you're Chris and when you're Aimee?
I definitely get more drinks paid for me when I'm as Aimee. So I definitely will be going to more clubs like this because free drinks are always nice.
I wanted to ask you, because some people have misconception. I don't know if it's the right word. If you're a drag queen, you want it to be transgender or something. I don't know. Have you heard about it?
Yes, absolutely.
Can you tell us, like, probably you don't agree with this, because it's kind of different to be a drag queen and to be transgender. Like, what do you think about this misconception? How we cross the line and people understand, like, how different? Like, did you ever thought about being transgender? Like, what are your thoughts?
There are some queens out there who are strictly, cis male performers who get in drag, and that's all they do. Someone like me, I feel like I'm kind of in the middle. I've definitely considered being, like, am I trans? Because I enjoy looking like a woman. Like, so the gender dysphoria has been there. I would go as far to say as I feel comfortable as a man out of drag, and I feel like a woman in drag. So I'm gender fluid in a way. So I definitely cross the line. However I feel, that's my gender. And then we have so many more drag queens now who are trans women who do drag. So gender is fluid. We know this. It's such a spectrum. Drag can literally go on any point of the spectrum.
Yeah. What's one advice you would give to someone who wants to do a drag?
Don't think about what other people may be thinking about you. Like, it's such a hard thing to switch off. You're always like, I'm always passing by a mirror and like, oh my God, I looked like this whole time, Like, it's hard because so much of drag is also curating an image. It's so much more fun and it's so much more enjoyable when you feel beautiful and you look at yourself and you're like, this is how I want to look, and not giving a fuck about what anybody else thinks about how you look. It's hard, but you have to train yourself to get into that mindset. That's the only way that drag is going to be enjoyable.
Thank you so much for talking to us. I'm definitely going to leave Aimee Instagram. And do you have TikTok or no?
I do have TikTok, yeah.
I'm going to leave Aimee Instagram and TikTok in the description to this video. Please make sure you go follow and say hi from Art. Thank you so much again for talking to us. I wish you good luck, and I hope I'm going to see you being DJ drag queen or whatever you want to be, and stay you. Any couple words you want to say to the viewers before we go?
I just want to say thank you for spending the time with me, and I hope to see you all out there.
We'll see you, and see Aimee.